Hello, hello, well met. This is Founder Layron with Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today we are going to take a look at Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. So this is going to be cool. So I'm going to take a look at this content. We're going to go through it. I'm sure this will happen again on Fantasy Grounds Fridays or whenever Doug or Dave and Bella get around to it. I'm going to do my own little quick preview. Spoiler alert, so if any of you haven't purchased this product, this will be something that you will probably want to skip or maybe look at it later. I'm going to take a look at the product. Hey, how's it going there, AP? So anyhow, let's take a look. So I got some interesting things that I wanted to share with you initially while I was doing research for the show. So I got the module last night and I was looking over it. And, you know, I happened to notice in the back of my mind that there was some product put out almost a year ago or more I think Rob Toohey just did a show on it, and it's basically the Book of Dragons 1 and 2. It has a lot of the similar content. It's not the same, but the gem dragons, the additional classes and races were kind of done on the DM's Guild about a year ago, and it's been converted over to Fantasy Grounds. So if you guys are interested in more content that has dragons in it, that's definitely another source. So that's pretty cool. So anyhow, to the show. So Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. So what we have here is what they call a supplement. Some people say it's an accessory. Either way, it just adds more content to whatever game system you're playing. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Forgotten Realms or anything specific like that. It could very well go into any sort of setting that you want. I'm going to go through some of the art, take a look at some of the content, and then show you what you're actually getting. So on the website, if you go to, there's going to be a link to the product directly in the links at the end of the show. But if you go there, it says it introduces Gem Dragons to 5th edition officially for canon. It talks about the story when the first world was created and the role that Bahamut and Tiamat played during its creation and destruction. And those two have been going at it for all time. And apparently these creatures are multidimensional, so you don't necessarily see them stuck in any particular universe. They seem to be everywhere. So even Greyhawk, Dragonlance, you name it, they've been in lots of different D&D, TSR, maybe even other products. It does add more player options, so it includes more draconic ancestry. So instead of just the chromatic dragons and the metallic dragons, now you're going to have the gem dragons too. There's themed subclasses for monks and rangers, some new feats and some spell options, which is kind of cool. You're also going to get some tools for the DM. One thing that this thing does require, if you want to use the Horde generator, which is a treasure generator, you're going to have the Dungeon Master's Guide, the digital version for Fantasy Grounds, because it pulls on a lot of that material. So if you don't own the DM's Guide or you don't have it activated, the tables may not generate correctly. So it does warn you. It says, note, the D&D Dungeon Master's Guide is required to make full use of the treasure tables. That's about the only requirement that I can see right off the get-go. It introduces the idea of the dragons adding to their bestiary, so there's a lot more dragons to pull upon. There's the dragon gods, dragon-related creatures, minions, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So for no other reason, just the lore and the artwork alone is worth it. So if I go to the images here, I'm going to open up just some pre-canned images that I had ready. So this is the cover art, probably my favorite piece of art. They did definitely choose well on what they picked for the cover. It's just beautiful. It's full color art, not sketches or anything, so it's really nice. There's an image of a familiar character. There's Fizban. Fizban the Fabulous made his first appearances, I believe, in the Dragonlance series. He's supposed to be kind of a bumbling, silly wizard that gets lucky and has some accidents that actually end up being beneficial. They called him Fizban the Fabulous at one point. I think he was friends with Tasselhoff Burfoot, and he is a well-renowned wizard. I think he was also considered a mortal aspect or a mortal representation of Bahamut. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that, but I think that was part of his lore back in the day. So here's a copper dragon. So a Dragonborn with the copper metallic dragon background. It's pretty cool. I put a little mist on it to kind of give it a little movement. It's just probably one of my favorite action pictures. So he's got the blade. He's getting ready to looks like he's getting ready to swat somebody with it. So that's some pretty cool looking art there. And then there's this new dragon that I'm really interested in. This kind of creature. It's called the Rahashak or Rashakak, or I don't know how the heck to say it, but it's basically looks like a swamp or like a deep forest like creature that has draconic like things, and I believe that this is a black dragon, basically, maybe a specific one. He is pretty nasty looking. He doesn't look very friendly, but I thought this picture was pretty cool. So that's just some of the artwork that you might find in the book. When I pulled up the art assets, I noticed that there's quite a bit. So if you pull up the images group and you're in the artwork D&D Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, there's a ton of different things in here. And there's just tons of art. So I like that alone. It's nice to have some extra artwork. They even included some artwork that's themed for the actual book and not just some random stuff. So I like that. So what you're getting is, if you go to your library, after you download and you purchase the content, you're going to notice that you're going to get a module for the maps. So if you want to use the maps that come from the book itself, you're going to get the maps, which are partially colored and partially black and white. The Treasury of Dragons supplement itself, and then you're going to get the player's option. So there's actually 3 pieces to this module. The reason why they do this partially is to make it more manageable, and you don't have to load the whole entire book. You can just load the pieces that you need. So if you just want to do character creation and you just want the character stuff, you only load the player's part. If you want all of the lore and the tables and stuff, then you load the supplement itself. And if you want to use the images and the maps for the layers for all of these different creature types, then you would load those too. So those are basically what you're getting from the content itself from Fantasy Grounds. Is you get 3 different sections basically, and it's broken out so you can cut down on memory and you're not loading a big whopping thing, because it has a lot of art in it. So it's a smart move on their part to kind of break it up a little. So the reference manuals, I'm going to pull those up. So this is the one for the maps. This just has a note in it that tells you that the maps are included in the images section. They did not embed those in the reference manual, so you actually have to go into the images area to look at those. The next reference manual is the actual supplement. So it's broken down into chapters. You have the cover here. If you use the navigation arrows on the bottom, that's how you go through the book, just like you would a regular hardback book. And you can navigate through and read it just like you would a regular hardback book. And if you wanted to search for something, so let's look for not Fizban, let's look for Dragonlance. Let's look for that word to see if it shows up anywhere in here. So if I do a search, yeah, so the Dragon Gods, it mentions Dragonlance in there. Some Dragon campaigns. It talks about Lorana and Kitiara, the generals of the Dragon Riders, and opposing armies battle in the Temple of the Dragon Queen. There's Kryn, the Council of Worms. Tarkir is basically in the multiverse of Magic the Gathering. So there's different settings that feature dragons, and they're just kind of giving you an idea of what those are. And then there's some magic items that are included in this book that have some unique flavor. They even include a Dragonlance in here. It does require attunement. There are some other crystal blades. So there's all kinds of cool trinkets and items that come with the Fantasy Grounds version and the actual hardback. So that's pretty cool. And then you have the player's reference. So we're going to go through that shortly, but it gives you an introduction. It talks about creating characters and how that's to be done. You have your races, subclass options. There's some inspiration that includes for the characters of any class to portray their training or magic as derived to how they're connected to their dragon. And then there's some draconic feats that will actually help for your connections to the chromatic gem and metallic dragon family. So that's what this covers, is the other side of the dragons, because they don't have a lot of lore on them. So that's where they're kind of making up for it in this one. Chromatic dragons are covered pretty well in a lot of different products. And then, of course, you have a list of spells and magic that comes from the supplement. You have some spells that are new that basically are added to the pool of spells that you already have if you own the content. There are some draconic gifts, and there's a table that gives you draconic markings. So if you're connected to a dragon, you can roll on the table, and it will give you one of these manifestations. So one of them is a mark, like a stylized dragon eye or a claw, appears on your body. So it's just more for role playing and for creating characters. So these are some of the contents that you'll get for reading and for absorbing into your campaigns if you want to use that. Just the art alone is worth it to me. So I really like the artwork. Is probably my favorite part of this. So now I'm going to go into examples of the data that you're going to get in Fantasy Grounds. So what this is an equivalent of your library. So if you go into your library and you click on these links, you'll see it has images, story templates, tables, equipment, magic item templates, all sorts of things in here that will help you with your, add and expand your world and your content. So it's one of those things. No Dark Sun Dragons, no, I'm afraid not. So the Treasury of Dragons seems like a pretty good piece of work. I mean, some content that Wizards of the Coast has put out in the past hasn't been really all that wonderful, but I think that this content here is decent. If my personal opinion, I mean, this is my own individual opinion. This isn't not reflective of Smiteworks or the community, but I think I'd give it a B. I wouldn't say an A+. I think a setting like Strahd, Curse of Strahd or something would be closer to an A. This is more like a B, and I give that mostly because of the art. I'm pretty critical about content, so if I look at a product and it doesn't offer me much in the way of expanding my campaigns, or if it's not written very well, those sort of things. But I think this deserves a good, strong B as far as overall quality. Zacchaeus actually converted this, so I know it's going to be decent. There's just not going to be a lot of mistakes. And, if you do find any, make sure you report those on the official forums, or you can probably just PM them. It's better if you go through the forums, but I've PM'd him occasionally when I find things just to get it, because he knocks it out right away. He usually doesn't wait too long. Okay, so that's basically the kind of the introduction of the content you're getting. So you're getting player options, you're getting some lore, you're getting some stuff to some NPCs and all kinds of things. So let's take a look. So that's the library, and that's what you're basically going to see when you load Fantasy Grounds, and you have 3 different sections you can load. I have the DM's guide and the player's handbook open just in case I want to look at something and I don't have to open the book in the middle of the stream. So I'm going to go ahead and close the library. The next section is classes. So you're going to get a monk class, and all it really does is it's going to add the Way of the Ascended Dragon, which is a monastic tradition, or you could call it however you want, but it has this Ascended Dragon origin table, and it's pretty cool. I like one of them is you found a scroll written in Draconic that contained inspiring new techniques. So it's kind of like you're learning dragon style, and you have all these different things that are themed towards dragons. So that's your monk option. On the Ranger, I built one of these by hand before the content was even officially released. So I have a good idea of what these are, but you have the Drake Warden. And this is a Ranger subclass where you have an affiliate tie with an actual Drake. And as you level, the Drake gets larger too. So there's a table here that kind of gives you an idea of how you became attached to this dragon. So one is saying that you studied a dragon scale or claw, or a trinket from Dragon's Hoard, creating your bond through that token's lingering draconic magic. So there's some really cool story ideas to launch some ideas for you. You don't have to use any of this stuff, but it's definitely cool. I think it's cool in the fact that they offer you those options, because previously you had to make everything up, and when you have writer's block, or if you're not familiar with the setting, it's kind of hard to come up with the stuff. So it's nice to have a starting point at least. So what else do we have here? We have our let's see. So there's your classes. So you got a couple subclasses or archetypes, and now let's go to races. So you have the chromatic race, the gem dragon race, and you have the metallic. So you have 3 sub races, and then each one of those has all the colors. So depending on which color you choose, is it breath weapon type, you get some sort of resistance based off of your ancestry or your heritage. So whatever dragon type that you pick is basically what you're going to be getting. I noticed that the gem dragons use more psionics than they do traditional dragon type things, and they also have a flight that's temporary. It's called gem flight, and it's basically you manifest some spectral wings that last for about a minute, and you can kind of fly around. So they're not big flyers, but they do have ability to conveyance for flying and such. So flying seems kind of like a secondary thing for gem dragons. Okay, so that's your races. You have those subclasses for your Dragonborn, and they have all the colors within each one. The gem dragons feature colors like, let's see, they have their gem ancestry. So you have amethyst, you have topaz, you have sapphire, emerald, and crystal. And they have force, radiant, psychic, thunder, and necrotic. So those are a little bit different than your fire, your elemental stuff. These are more forces of energy. So that's pretty cool. So those are just some differences that you have, more options basically for Dragonborn and for your racial features. I'm pretty sure if you subscribe to one of the publishers that make the coding effects, I'm sure they're already working on it or already done. So it wouldn't take a whole lot of time to code those, because a lot of those are very similar to what's already out there. You just have to edit them. Okay, so the next thing after races is feats. So there's some draconic feats that come with the setting, or in this case, supplement. So you have the Tongue of the Dragon, Scale Toughness, Sonic Reach. There's Gift of the Metallic, Gift of the Gem, Gift of the Chromatic Dragon, Rightful Present, Echo of Dragon Sight, Dragon Senses, Draconic Rebirth, and Draconic Familiar. So those are the new feats that come with the content. So if you have Draconic Familiar, you basically gain a boon or a gift of a Draconic Familiar, which might be a splinter of the consciousness of a dragon that invested you with power. So it could be that you were granted this familiar, but it is taking on an aspect or even an essence of the dragon that it was spawned from or that is connected to. So that's kind of cool. And I think this is a Drake Warden feat also. So those are some of the feats that you get. There's some items, so plethora of items. So I have this stretched all the way out through the whole screen here just about. And there's 36 pages of items. So there's got to be over 100 items here. It's probably about 200 or 300 items. This would have taken a while to make these. So if I was Zacchaeus, I would have went nuts. Maybe they have a tool at their arsenal, but this is a lot of stuff. Have you ever built any content for Fantasy Grounds? This can really take a long time. Items is one of those tedious things that there's really no cheat. You just have to build them. So that's a lot of work. I think the items would take someone a few days to do, even if you're proficient with it. Okay, so there's a ton of items. So there's some Ascendant gear here for the Ascendant Monk path. Lots of Ascendant stuff. And then it looks like they have their own arsenal of equipment and weapons, which is crazy. And then there's the Dragon Lances. So if you open up the Dragon Lance entry, this is an actual legendary Dragon Lance with 5th edition stats. It's got a +3 bonus, 1d12 piercing. It has reach, it's special, and it has magical properties. This was not previously canon before. I know people have made attempts at creating and converting, but this is with the 5e stats. It's a renowned forged weapon with rare material with the aid of powerful artifacts associated with Behemoth. Different lances are forged for use by foot soldiers as pikes and by riders as lances, but the magical properties of the weapons are the same. You gain +3 on attacks and damages. Not too many items that I know of that are +3 or higher. In 5th edition, there has not been too many weapons, unless you make them yourselves or they're from the DM's Guild, that are +3. +3 is almost like OP. there's some notes. You have disadvantage when you use a lance to attack a target within 5 feet of you. So if someone gets inside your reach, and it's a two-handed thing when you're wielding it, when you're not mounted. So it's a disadvantage if someone gets in too close. Now, that's pretty cool. It's a stupid question. In the supposed to get their +1 ability scores, it's only adding a single. I actually think he worked on that. I'll show you that in a sec. I actually looked at that, so I'll show you. It actually worked. It came up twice, and I don't know what they did to fix it, but that did come up in the character creation. So I'll show you that shortly. So it's a good question because I did check that before I did the show. So the items, there's plenty of those. The tables, and you go into the tables for creating the dragon hordes. Again, you need to have the Dungeon Master's Guide so it can pull on the gems and the coins and stuff, but there's some tables for generating content for treasure. NPCs, you get quite a few of those. They didn't skimp out on that, but you have different types of dragons in here and other creatures, so it's not all dragons, which is cool. So you're getting, probably 50 different monsters out of here, which is really neat. And that brings us back to the image. So that's basically what you're getting with the content. So I want to indulge in the question in the chat. So I made a character earlier today. So if I go to characters, I made a character named Ruby, which I don't know why I named her that, but she's basically based off a topaz dragon. She's a gem dragonborn. I think it does work correctly. He was worried that the way that the verbiage has been in some of the new products, that it doesn't parse quite right. So I know manually it works. Now, I don't know if it works in the character wizard, but if you build it the traditional way, it does work. And that's the way I tested it. So if you go to characters and you bring up a blank character sheet, what's happening is that Wizards of the Coast is changing their wording format, so it kind of goofs up some of the selections and whatnot. So I'm just going to give this creature the standard array of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Okay, and then I'm going to pick a background really quick. So there are no new backgrounds unless you make up your own. So I'm just going to grab Gladiator. That's kind of a cool one. Okay, and then for race, I'm going to pick one of the new races. So I'm going to open up the races banner. And I'm going to pick a gem dragon because I know those work. And drag and drop that. And here's where it pops up your skill choices. So it says choose one ability to increase by 2. So one of these I can choose. So depending on what I'm going to build, I'll just say a fighter. So I want to give them a little bit more dex or con. So I'm going to go ahead and give them constitution and go ahead and hit the OK button. And now it comes up again, choose one ability to increase by 1 again. So it does work. So I'm going to go ahead and give them dex. So that part works, if that's what you were talking about. Yeah, so the wizard, I don't know if it works or not yet. So the wizard has been put on hold for a bit. I mean, I could look, but I don't want to do that on a live stream. So if we want to check that out after the stream, I can. And you just message me. But I don't know if Smiteworks has the manpower right now to do it. They're replacing whoever worked on it before. So I doubt that it's done that much work to it, but it looks like they fixed at least the base of it is working, and that's what's more important. The character wizard still has a lot of work to do. It doesn't accept custom content yet, or at least last time I messed with it, it didn't. And it still has a few bugs, and like I said, there's some wording things and things like that. So it really depends on what you're building. So if you're building some of the standard stuff, it should work. But any of this newer content with different wording might throw it off a little. So anyways, if you're building content with the new Fizbans or anything, Tasha's or the Feywild, I would recommend using the old drag and drop method for now. if you want to save yourself some headaches. The only thing that really the wizard has done is cut down the amount of time to take and select your stats and your background race and class. And it's also allowed you to avoid doubling up on your skills. But if you know that stuff already, it's only going to save you about 20 minutes tops. But if you're making several characters in one day, that's a big, huge time saver. So I don't know. I got mixed feelings on that, but I like the idea of the wizard. It just needs a little bit more work. That's all. Okay, so the class and level, I'm going to pick one of the new classes. So I'm going to grab, let's see, I'll do the monk. So just drag and drop that in there. It's asking me for 2 skills. So this is what I was talking about. If you already have performance and acrobatics, the character wizard won't let you pick more than, it won't let you overlap. So I just know to go to the skills tab and look and say performance and acrobatics. I don't want that. So I'm going to have stealth and I'm going to use athletics. So this is for a monk. I'm going to go ahead and approve that, and that will assign those. Then I'll level it up just by drag and drop this in here. And now it's going to ask for which type I want to choose from. So Way of the Ascendant Dragon is the new subclass for the monk. So I'm going to go ahead and approve. One thing that I wanted to warn you about that I noticed is if you choose a Dragonborn character and you have a monk that has the Way of the Ascendant, you're kind of doubling up on an ability, and I'll show you what I'm saying. This is one thing I did not care for when I was building the character. So Way of the Ascendant Dragon, it gives you some features. So you have this Breath of the Dragon, which is really cool. It's based on your monk abilities and your key powers, and it basically is a breath weapon. However, the breath weapon that comes with your racial features is a little bit different. There's Breath of the Dragon, and then there's breath weapon. So they are separate. One's a trait, one's a feature. One of them, you only get whatever it is your dragon type is, and you can use the breath weapon, and it's got a little bit different. Like this is a 20-foot cone with a 30-foot line, 5 feet wide, and you get to pick which energy type it is. Whereas the breath weapon is not quite as powerful. It does a 1d10, and it's based on your gem ancestry. And I think in some cases this might be a reaction. So it's kind of doubling up on a skill that's, I don't know. To me, it seems like a little bit of overkill. I mean, cool, you got various breath weapons, but I would have preferred to have a different feature than that. So if you're going to pick 3rd level Way of the Ascendant Dragon and you're going to use a Dragonborn, just keep that in mind that you're going to have 2 different breath weapons. One is based off your racial type, and then one's based off of your archetype, and they're almost the same thing. They're a little different, but it's this one. The monk one, you get to choose the energy type, and then you get to use it as many times as your proficiency bonus. Same thing with this breath weapon, but the breath weapon goes up with your levels. This kind of goes off of your proficiency level. So. And then you get 1 extra die at 11th. So they're balanced from each other, but I think it's kind of redundant. I don't like it when skills. Personally, I don't like it. Yeah, it's not. Okay, good. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I figured that. Bang. So that's why I built it with the standard. I've actually been using the old drag and drop method since I found out that they're not able to work on it right now. So I'm not too worried about the character builder right now. So the breath weapon and the Breath of the Dragon are very similar. So that's the only thing I could say I can add to this review and not make it like all the others is that the research I did building this creature type, I'm not too sure I like the 2 different breath weapon features that are almost the same thing. So it's a combination of things because you have a monk and you have the Way of the Ascendant Dragon, and then you have the Dragonborn feature on top of that. So yeah, you're going to have lots of different breath weapons, but these 2 things are almost the same, and that's something that I don't care for. But this Breath of the Dragon, you have to have that archetype, whereas this regular breath weapon is just for your racial traits. So I don't know. I'm kind of wishy-washy about that. I don't know what you guys think about this, but if you watch this video in the future, let me know what you think. I'm a little bit more critical about that kind of thing because I think you're kind of getting doubled up on it, and I think it's unnecessary. But that's just me. I could be a total butthead, but anyhow, that is just something I noticed when I was building the character. That's not something I would have wanted for a build. Anyhow, that's basically that. Another thing I wanted to comment on is earlier this month, I made my own version of the Dragonborn, so that version may not be up to snuff with this version that comes with this. But there is something I wanted to tell you about the Dragonborn build. Is it's a little bit more work on the Game Master to have one of those ran. So what I'm saying is when you pick that class or that archetype, you're going to have to build or have your DM build a Drake or use a Drake and create the NPC for you as your companion. So you're almost going to have to handle it like you would a Druid Wild Shape or a Druid Command, a Druid or even a Ranger Beastmaster type thing. So when you're creating that character and you have that bond with the Drake, that is going to be something that you're going to have your GM help you manage, because most of the time players can't access that content without the Game Master's intervention. So that would mean you'd have to have an NPC, and then you would have to create that, put it on the combat tracker, make it friendly, and then go into the options of Fantasy Grounds, and then go into the options where you can basically have a shared experience. You have a view. So party vision and movement, that has to be on. Unfortunately, it's universal, so that affects everyone at the table. So that means that anyone can move anyone's token if they want, and they can see through the eyes of that ally. So in order for you to give control or to have control of an NPC, that option has to be turned on. And that's the only way that it will work in Unity. So there are other options, like if you use Diablo Bob's Druid, one-click Druid, you could probably get away with something like that if you are going to use it as like a if you're going to change into it. I think there is a feature at higher level where you can actually metamorphose into the Drake, but nonetheless, it's going to be a little bit more work to manage that type of character. So if you're all excited about using that archetype in Fantasy Grounds, just remember that eventually, once you summon that Drake, you're going to have the Drake NPC stat block, and it needs to be accessible to your players. And the only way to do that is to put it on the combat tracker, make it friendly, turn on the party share view in the options, and then you would drag this link to the character. So when whoever's attached to your table or whoever's on your if you're the GM, you drag and drop that NPC onto the actual player portrait, and it will pop up on their end, and then you take the NPC stat block and you would shortcut it. And that's the old way of doing it. I'm sure there's extensions and other things you can find to get around that, but in Fantasy Grounds, that's how you do that. So that's the only two things I can really say on the cautionary side of things. Is both classes have a couple things I'm not too keen about, especially the Fantasy Grounds implementation of it. Pen and paper would be pretty easy to deal with, but in Fantasy Grounds, to get it to work right, you have to do a little bit of finagling on how you want to handle it. In some cases, the DM will just control it, so that makes it easy. So if you don't want your player controlling it, you can control it yourself. So but then that's one more NPC that you have to control throughout the whole campaign, unless it dies or something. So I just kind of give you a heads up on that. It might, depends. I don't know if they're up to date yet, but that assistant thing probably isn't updated just yet because it just came out. So I think that it would have to be tested and looked at before we can say yes or no on the assistant GM module. But nonetheless, that is how you would do it. So if there's no more questions or anything, I think I'll let you go. I think that's enough content for now. I don't want to give away too much or give up the ghost on everything. But I think I give you a pretty good idea of what you're getting and some of the things you might notice when you're using the content. So I kind of did a little research and exploring, and that's what I've come up with. I think it's a good supplement. Anytime you add more class features and spells and items, I think there are some spells. If you go to the spells tab, that's one thing I forgot to look at. And then I'm going to go to Fizban's Tyranny of Dragons, go to the players options. Yeah, there's a few spells here. Summon Draconic Spirit, Ream's Binding Ice. That's kind of cool. There's Rolitham's Psychic Lance, Fizban's Platinum Shield. Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff. Draconic Transformation. Yeah, that's where you can kind of turn into a dragon. And that's what I'm saying. That would be useful for Diablo Bob's thing. And then Transmutation for Asher Delon's Stride. So that's cool. All right, so there you go. That's the content that comes with the Fantasy Grounds edition. It's also in the pen and paper books, but I wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like in Fantasy Grounds and some of the things that you might come across. So take care, everyone. I think I'll call it a stream. Happy gaming. At the end of this week on Saturday, I have a one-shot. It's at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. There are 2 or 3 slots open if you guys want to play in a Halloween-themed one-shot. And that will be happening soon. So if you are interested, you can go to our website on the fantasygroundscollege.net website. It's right. It's the first event on there. Go to the events tab. It's right there. So take care, everyone. Have a good day, good rest of the week, and happy Halloween if you celebrate that, or Day of the Dead. Take care. Bye-bye.